3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com. GrokTALk. Welcome to 2015. It is January 3rd. 2015. This is GrokTALK, brought to you by GrokTALK.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, coming to you currently live from Concord, New Hampshire, but pre-recorded everywhere else. You should certainly go to GrokTALK.com if you're watching the live stream, or at Ustream.tv. Search GrokTALK, and you can watch the show right now. You'll see a room full of people sitting there waiting to have things to say, and let's talk about some of what's going to go on today. Slowly we lower the volume. A lot of things to talk about. Guy Comtois here is going to give us a legislative update. Susan Olson is going to give us an update on 2A issues, Second Amendment. We have Brian Demjanovich in, and a little bit later, Max Abramson is going to join us, New Hampshire House Rep. We're going to do our WTF. We're going to try to squeeze in a little bit of year in review thing in a top 20, maybe, if we can focus long enough to do that. And no, we're not going to focus. And please feel free, if you are not. If you are, you should go to iHeartRadio and iTunes and Stitcher and Spreaker and TuneIn and listen to this program.
And soon Google Plus. I haven't quite made it work yet for the live streaming and the recorded, but I'm working on it.
You're working on it.
I'm working on
That's
it.
That's good.
Make Ed flash, please.
Make it. Yeah, we want to do that because Ustream has commercials, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so those interrupt your experience. And we want to improve your experience.
Unless, of course,
or if we get enough donations to pay off the Ustream commercials.
Yes, if we could get some donations.
Well, here's the thing: if we could do it through Google Plus for free, then why waste the money?
Yeah,
that's true.
So anyway, interesting year so far. The end of the year ended with a few issues that we could talk about. And it's just if you missed the pre-show, we're covering a couple of things. Always looking for suggestions for the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot of the week. You can certainly tweet those to us at GraniteGrok or use the hashtag GrokTALK. We've got a couple. We came up with a few, actually, even in the pre-show, like the DOT thing with the signs. That was one of the possibilities. And then, so it's just this never-ending flow of WTFs. In fact, without them, would we even have a show? You have to wonder.
Well, as Limbaugh frequently says, you can't make this stuff up. The Democrats and the rhinos between them provide nearly all of our script material. And every once in a while, a conservative does something bright enough and stunning enough that we're forced to fall down in amazement.
We're going to have a guest, Max Abramson, coming in later. The esteemed Democrat-elected Speaker Sean Jasper kicked him off a committee through the press, apparently, without actually telling him he was going to kick him off the committee.
Has he officially kicked him off at this point?
I believe he has, yes. So we'll have him in to talk about that as well. And, of course, those of you who don't know who Brian is, he's Jennifer Horn's pool guy. That's kind of what we've been calling him. He's actually much more than that, but we'll get into that when we have him on. But there's a story there that needs to be told, and we're going to tell it, and it's going to piss off a bunch of people, and we couldn't be happier. So, that's kind of what we do around here.
Because here in New Hampshire, it's all about bringing down the party. Long live the party.
No,
it's time to start over.
The party stopped doing things that it should. All right, so Guy,
yes,
welcome back.
Good morning.
Welcome back. Guy, if you didn't know, is going to be doing regular legislative updates for us every week. We're going to try to do 10, 12 minutes and talk about what's going on that needs to be talked about right now. So, as our legislative liaison.
Yes.
How's it going over there?
Well, it's been, obviously with the holidays, it's been, excuse me, kind of quiet, but, that Democrat-elected Speaker Jasper is, I guess, we've all been around long enough. How many leaders do you see that lead effectively that work completely at, vindictiveness? He's removing people off committees and putting them on committees that they didn't want just because, it's a vendetta. There was a representative out of Northwood that's been on criminal justice and public safety for 4 years, and He put in for it again, and he didn't get it. And when he saw Democrat elected Speaker Jasper, he asked, why am I not on my committee? And his only answer was, you know why, and walked away.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know why. That's a perfectly acceptable response.
For a leader, yes. Yes. I mean, I've had, in business, I've had up to 30 guys on construction jobs that we needed to get done, and you needed to move right along. And there were a few there you did not like. But the last thing you want to do is start acting out of vengeance to slow up the job, to morale, the whole 9 yards. You just don't do it. When you have to get something done and you're a leader, you have to just move along and put a lot of things behind you. For instance, Al Baldessaro is up at the well a lot. He put him in the middle of a row so that he's got to go past quite a few people to get out. Intentionally put him there. And he's got a bad hip. He put in for an aisle seat because of a physical situation where he's got to get up and walk around a lot. And they intentionally stuck him in the middle of the row.
So is this the grounds for an ADA suit?
Well, he's going through some...
that's American with Disabilities Act.
He's going...
No accommodation by the Democrat-appointed or elected Speaker of the House. This could be... this is like us at Granite Rock. They just give us stuff to talk about.
Well, it's like, I'm the Speaker of the whole House, and we got to move on, and we have to do the people's business, and on and on and on. And it sounds like little petty stuff, but, when you're constantly doing something, it starts adding up. It never smooths things over. It never does. It never works. And like Max Abrams, removing him from that committee without even sitting down and having a talk with him. I guess he found out through the press. That,
it's going to be rather interesting because as much as he complained about Bill O'Brien, isn't he setting an even worse table with this?
Well, Bill just removed people after plenty of warnings, and they were disruptive. Not from the get-go. People were not plucked and moved around just because he can do it.
No, and I didn't mean that way, but I mean Jasper complained bitterly about the way that Bill ran the House, and now he's doing an even worse job.
Well, because it's all about him. It's not about the people's business. That's just a little, quick soundbite. Oh, we're going to do the people's business, and behind the scenes, it's just all vindictiveness. And he's just like we've talked before, his ego is huge, and it's all about him, and it's not going to help anything. I think you saw that interview on WMUR, right?
We did, yes.
And where there's just a few people on the fringe that are upset.
After slamming Bill O'Brien and trying to make out that Bill's support is vanishing, he then tried to sound conciliatory to conservatives, but his first actions in the House belie that. Well,
you read between the words with that interview. I've never voted against any existing gun rights. I like that one. First one I heard that. There's a politician,
the original one. Yeah.
Right, for any existing, against any existing gun rights. So in other words, I've never voted to make them any better. You know what I mean? That's just a weasel word. And energy costs are low right now. Really? I guess he hasn't been looking at his electric bill. Because
and in the beginning when McElvin was I posted about that, and he came across as being very thin-skinned, very imperious at any suggestion that people would dare to stand up to him. And I said right then and there, this is going to be a long
2 years. You aren't kidding. You're exactly right. I'm not sure how he came across to other people because I know him. I don't know him personally. I don't like him. We've never talked, but I know him of him, his actions. But it's interesting to hear how he did come across from other people. But he did sit there very uncomfortable. He wasn't comfortable doing that interview.
Oh, no, he wasn't at all.
I think they sat him on a first grader seat, didn't they? Because
no, he was just sitting at the... He was very much... You could tell. He wanted to be there, but his body language was saying, I got to get out of here. It was very uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, it was. And it was just, typical political rhetoric. I don't know how... I don't see the conservatives are not giving in on this because it's just a matter of principle, and for him to get up there and, well, say there's just a few in the fringe, so-called. It's not true. The few is like over 100. I thought few was like 3 or, several.
If you're talking
over
300
that.
million, just over 100 is a few. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So what is going to be first up on the plate as you guys are getting ready to hit the ground running now this week, right?
Well, first up on the plate is going to be the Rules Committee that he put himself in charge of.
With Chandler.
Right. And so all of that's got to come up for vote. Okay? And the fact that he only picked up 20% of the Republican votes to become Speaker, and then he appointed the Majority Leader, which that's going to be coming up. Where we picked our leader was Representative Bill O'Brien.
Well, can't you hold a vote for the Majority Leader, since the Democrats aren't allowed to vote for the Republican leader?
We can. Well, we're going to. The fact that Bill O'Brien was chosen by the caucus to be the Majority Leader. What's going to be coming up is how could somebody, the Democrat-elected Speaker Jasper, who only picked up 20% of Republican votes, then how can he turn around and point the Republican leader when he was not put in by the Republicans? And that's the bone of contention right now, that we already chose a leader before we got into caucus.
Well, the double standard is that the Democrats duly elected their own leader, who was then confirmed as the minority leader, Stephen Shurtleff.
Right.
And yet the Democrat-appointed Speaker of the House, Jasper, decided not to let the Republican caucus have the same privilege of voting for their own. He duly appointed Mr. Flanagan as the majority leader. Now,
right. That's
fine. No, but if the Democrats get to vote for their leader, why shouldn't the Republicans get to vote for theirs, especially when they are the majority in the House? And that's really the problem.
That's the way things work when you do carry the majority of your party to achieve the speakership. So you would appoint then. But he did not. He only picked up 20% of his party. So it's kind of like, so how can you appoint the majority leader when you were not even close to a majority?
Yeah. Well, the corresponding thing in a look back is Bill O'Brien, when he was Speaker, allowed the caucus to elect its own majority leader.
He did. And the 20 seconds for second for a roll call, that's going to be coming up. His excuse there is it's too costly to do roll calls. And
what?
It's too costly to him, sure.
So
it's a button press.
Yes.
We've already
well,
got
it comes up on right now with that thing. I mean, within 5 minutes with the new computer system, 5 seconds. I'm sorry. Anybody watching knows how you voted. I mean, now I guess when you put stuff in the permanent.
Did he actually use the words "too expensive"?
He alluded to cost. Yes.
We definitely need to know that. If we could tell us how to run that down and find out, because that really is. I mean, it was a costly system to put in, but once it's in, all you need is the electricity to run it.
Right. And besides, the only thing it's too costly for is the taxpayers, because it'll allow them to get away with spending that we're not watching.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Well, there's only one reason why you would do that. There was only one reason why you would make it harder for a roll call vote, so that the folks back at home can put their representative's name next to the way they voted.
Yep.
And only one reason is because you don't want them to know how they voted.
And that's his first sop to the Democrats, because they hate being held accountable.
Yes.
Just like in the New Hampshire State Senate, the Republicans won't hold roll call votes. No. Sorry.
Well, if you're going to stand up for a roll call vote, you're going to be eating alone. As far as the state senate,
Yeah. Well,
you're going to be over in the corner with your little tray and your little cup.
High school all over again. You're not part of the clique.
No, exactly. They warn against roll calls. If you call a roll call, none of your legislation is going to get through.
Well, I'm hoping that a few new senators will form their own little micro caucus and say, Screw you.
It might be worth not having your own legislation go through to make sure everybody knows how people are voting on legislation that does go through.
Oh, absolutely.
It's an important service
Yeah.
to the community.
Yeah.
And there should be. Is there any movement to make sure there's 20 seconds for every freaking vote that comes up?
Well, yes, we got to do it.
That was exactly what I was going to suggest.
And,
now more than ever.
Right. So you do have that. We had talked about that sheet. Put the bill number on, and you can sign, get signatures, so that the speaker doesn't just blow through the roll call when, call for roll call, and if everybody doesn't jump up, it's not sufficient, second, no roll call. So you hand the sheet in, but you have to be in your assigned seats. So actually what it's going to do is it's going to make the day longer, because now you have to check around and see if 20 people in their assigned seats before you say the roll call is valid. And so it's going to make things even harder, because the sheet's going to be used all the time. Therefore, you got to look at the signatures. You got to scan the room. Got to make sure they're in their assigned seats. It's going to slow things up, other than the bing bang boom the roll calls used to be.
As that Chicago philosopher agitator once said, make them live up to their own rule book.
Yes.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with Susan Olson on a Second Amendment update, and this is GrokTALK, blah, blah, blah. We'll be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
All right, we are back. Welcome to GrokTALK. Thank you, Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and bloggers at GrokTALK.com. We'd like to move into our second featured segment in the first segment of the program. Susan Olson, the esteemed Susan Olson.
You were looking for something there. I'm not sure where you were going.
I wasn't even sure why I started going there.
I don't have any idea.
I don't know. We're gonna do Second Amendment issues real quick, and then we're gonna go to Brian. And so the new session is coming.
The new session is coming.
The new session is coming.
And what we had all hoped following the election in November is that common sense and intelligence and goodwill and truth in advertising we're going to hold in the New Hampshire legislature. But as Guy so clearly described to us, the new leader of the House has sort of changed that. Move back. Hello. It's that big head here. Yeah.
Go listen to the pre-show if you missed it.
Yeah. But nevertheless, there were, if anybody follows legislative service requests on the General Court website, if you're really bored or weird and you have nothing better to do and you sit home and you watch legislation.
I have a spreadsheet.
Do you?
I do.
Do you? We were looking at a number of legislative service requests, which are bills before they are born.
Preborn
bills. Yes, they are preborn. They are not personhood bills. They are preborn bills, and all they give you is a bit of an allusion to what the content might be, and you call them a marker. Well, there were a couple of them that we expected. One from Catherine Rogers, Democrat of Concord, alleged attorney, who has introduced a new universal background check bill. We knew that was coming. A couple of other bills regarding firearms that are going to come up. I think there's a total of 6 that I saw that are going to be up. One on concealed carry. Yeah, constitutional carry. I was in a fight on concealed carry online with someone the other day. Difference between a permit and a license and all of that stuff. But constitutional carry. I believe there's going to be a bill in the House and in the Senate. I believe identically worded. which should be great. Yeah, and we've just come off of a months long fight with the Department of Safety on the whole pistol revolver application license process,
which we did cover.
Which we did cover, and the Earl of Sweeney has retired his crown and his mantle, and is retiring for the Department of Safety. So we don't know who's taking his seat.
Setting aside his robe and scepter.
Indeed, indeed. So we're going to be looking at that, because I believe in one of the constitutional carry bills, if not both, there is a reference to a pistol revolver application that set the standard by which most all of us were operating, that included a definition of suitable person as being one who was not a prohibited person by federal law, which is a bit circular. But in New Hampshire, when you start looking through statutes and trying to find definitions on which one can hang one's hat, they typically don't exist. So suitable person, there's not a definition of suitable person. There should be. There was on the back of that form for many years, but only by not being prohibited. It's much the same with what's the definition of a firearm. There is not. There in 159.1, a firearm is defined as a pistol or revolver with a barrel length less than 16 inches. But there's not a definition of firearm. So we've got all of this silliness in various parts of statutes regarding our inherent right of self-defense as codified and recognized by 2A of the New Hampshire Constitution and the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
In fact, the constitutional version is you can carry whatever you want, wherever you want.
Pretty much. And one of the discussions on rules this Wednesday is the fact that legislators are going to be allowed, once again, to defend themselves.
Who quoted Murderer's Row? I read that this morning.
That was Miscellany Blue. The girls over at Miscellany Blue get their dresses all in a knot so many times.
Skirts. Oh, that's such a derogatory term.
If there's skirts in them.
It's an inside joke, folks.
Yes, they get their skirts in a knot. And so we have Murderer's Row there in the house, where we've got Balsaro.
Which is, by the way, not just a microaggression, but a macroaggression.
It is a macroaggression. I think it's hate speech, quite frankly.
We might have to investigate that further.
I think it's hate speech.
Because not a single one of those people's ever even been charged with murder.
I don't think they have.
And now they've sullied their reputation by calling them murderers.
No.
Probably, so we'll have to get into that. Miscellany Blue.
I thought for a moment you were saying that skirt was hate speech, and I was thinking I've got to find a good acronym for it.
Skirt.
For skirt?
Oh, skirt is hate speech.
You can skirt. It could be a verb, though.
We can go back to...
It can be a verb. It can be a noun.
We can go to Jennifer Horn's ascendancy to the NHGOP if we want to. We'll get to that.
Yeah, well, let's stop skirting the issue.
We're not going to skirt that issue now.
We cannot hide behind that skirt.
Roll call vote. That's skirting the responsibility.
Indeed. But interestingly enough, for the first time, I think, in history, or at least in recent history, all of the New Hampshire gun groups have decided to join forces and work together.
Cool.
That is unusual.
It is a great thing, and it was a little rocky to get us started, but we've had a couple of meetings, and we've all sat down and said, we understand why we're here and what we're doing, and we may have some individual issues with a particular piece of legislation, but the goal is the same: to defend and uphold our natural rights. So I think the legislature may be very surprised when they see Pro-Gun New Hampshire and New Hampshire Firearms Coalition and Gun Owners of New Hampshire and the Women's Defense League and Gun Rights Across America walk in together to testify on legislation. So there may be a new 2A day.
Well, it'd be like the same look on their faces when Custer ran into all those Indians the first time we got online, right?
Could be big old eyes like that. But it's that we've come to a point in New Hampshire that we have to seriously, formally join together to make sure that our elected leaders stop running over us. What does that say? We no longer have elected officials to whom we give our trust to do the right thing. They get elected, and then we've got to regroup on issue-specific areas to ensure that these...
Go ahead, say it.
Bastards.
Thank you.
Bastards.
Thank
you.
Don't sell their vote for that, seat at the table. And it's a bit disturbing. In a state like New Hampshire, where it's so small, you would think that it would be easier to accomplish things, but I fear that because it's so small, it's easier to have been overtaken by a few, including Papa Smurf.
Yeah.
So on either side.
I find that strange, really, because the whole point of having a large number of legislators is that there's one close enough to you to reach out and choke on any given day, and yet somehow the people are not doing so.
Right, they're not.
Well, it hasn't gotten so bad yet. Okay, but it's getting there.
There's a few in my district that I seriously wonder why the district tolerates them.
Well, because they haven't hurt them bad enough.
No.
Yeah,
You get to a point you say, look, just leave me alone. If it doesn't bother me, leave me alone. I don't want to stick my head over the parapet.
Well, remember what rule number 1 was? Politicians only respond to pain.
They do only respond to pain, which, by the way, there's going to be another one of our guerrilla training classes coming up, I hope, the end of January.
We'll have to advertise that.
We will be advertising that, and we hope that folks will show up and understand that no is a complete sentence.
And I think you'll also, we're beginning to see a bit of more of a, not just with the gun groups, but they're collating together. All the liberty and freedom groups are really kind of talking to each other and saying,
finally.
And saying, look, we have a common enemy, and he's supposed to be helping us. So we need to do something about that.
That's right. Each group has tried in turn to partner with what it presumed was a conservative Republican Party, and once again found out to its cost was not.
Yeah, well, it's the way it's always been, where you've got all these groups. They may be aligned philosophically as to the same goals, but here in New Hampshire we have all these curmudgeon-y conservatives that decide, I'm going to do it my way because your way stinks, even though the end goal is the same. As I've said before and written before, we saw that melding that you're talking about again happen before the 2010 election with the rise of the Tea Party groups, where they all said, let's put aside our differences, let's all work for a common good, because they saw the outrageousness that was happening, and they said, we are losing our liberties and we are losing our freedoms. And most people don't understand, tyranny does not come just at the end of a gun from an invading force or a police state. It comes from the point of a pen. They understood it then they kind of disintegrated with the internal squabbling, as historically has happened, and now, thanks to you, we're starting to see that coalition coming back together again.
All right, that's the end of the first segment. We'll be back with Brian Demjanovich. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Guy. This is GrokTALK. Stay tuned, 3 minutes. We'll be right back.
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said,
"Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results."
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
"There are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change."
Jeanne Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our healthcare coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to GrokTALK.
Grok TV.